am your host, Alex Jones, and we are going to open the phones up for people that do have power or are able to call in. Some people have phone service but not power on the East Coast with the hurricane that obviously started to plow in. It's causing some damage, some flooding, cars flooding down the street in New York City, subways flooded, a lot of people dead. I don't know, it was like 17 last time I checked. We should pray for everybody, but they're calling this the ultimate storm in history now, and I think that is hype. We've seen the media do that before, but certainly it's already affecting early voting and things like that. And so it is absolutely essential that we continue to track exactly what's happening with this hurricane, but also understand they will try to get executive orders through, so-called free trade deals through, all sorts of things through while we're busy watching this Hurricane Sandy. And they will also try to use looting and things like that, which there's already been some arrests for looting, as a pretext to basically restrict all of our liberties. I noticed that the New Atlantic magazine wrote an article today making fun of Infowars.com and DrudgeReport.com, implying that there's never any looting during hurricanes and that we were just horrible people for showing the tweets of folks saying they were going to loot, even though arrests are being made with people looting inside stores and things. And I've got all those articles here in front of me. Also, there's a new article breaking at Infowars.com. Time Warner kills TV show critical of TSA. And this is big news because the show talked to scientists and the admissions that the naked body scanners were causing cancer. It showed Michael Chertoff, former head of Homeland Security, making money personally off of ordering the scanners, and total conflict of interest. And Time Warner, the same folks that own CNN, who've been caught by their own reporters that have gone public recently, Amber Line and others, covering up massacres by Arab countries they're friendly towards. We're talking about lining up families and shooting them, and the media covering that up. So Time Warner kills TV show critical of TSA. Episode exposed how body scanners were a major cancer threat. And that's big news. We're going to be getting into that. Yesterday, Facebook now censoring political posts as hate speech. And all we did was show an image of bin Laden and say Al-Qaeda. And they said that's not allowed. And they said if you do it again, you will have your account, one of many we have, with 300+ thousand people, 321,000 signed up for it. Facebook now censoring political posts as hate speech. Social network giant threatened to close Alex Jones' account over bin Laden Al-Qaeda image. And we've had them shut down other accounts we have. That's why, I don't know, I say we got 15, 20. We got more than that. We've had fans over the years that set up hundreds of them. And we had one listener that was doing it that gave us, it was more than 20 of them. He set them up for every film we have, every website we have. And, you know, some of them had 100,000, 200,000, 20,000, 10,000, 300,000. It was all totaled over 1 million what this guy handed over to us. We don't even really know how to run it, but we're trying. We're learning. And we just linked our articles and stuff, and there's no porn, there's no calls to violence. But we can't say bin Laden CIA and then link to an article in the Washington Post admitting it. That's just not allowed. Darren McBrain was told with his personal Facebook, he had just mainline news up there, and they said, we don't allow politics on Facebook. He was given that message, and that's in the article too. So, sick of the globalist eugenicist control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPur. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPur, and it's available discounted at Infowars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use. Doesn't doesn't require electricity. Purify water from lakes, streams, ponds, and wells. This filter system leaves in beneficial minerals, which is key. Save money by not buying bottled water and avoid BPA that leaches from the plastic. ProPur is the best gravity-fed filter out there. It's what my family uses. Infowars.com already has the lowest price on ProPur. But if you add the promo code WATER at checkout, you get an additional 10% off at Infowars.com. You can also call to order 888-253-3139. Frankenstorm is, been hyped up like it's the end of the world, the worst storm in history. You've seen the headlines. But it is pretty darn bad. I mean, I have a laundry list of articles here about what is happening with the hurricane. I'm going to list some of those. There have been 17 to 18 deaths. The numbers are changing all the time. There have been troops called out in 5 states. There have been curfews launched. There have been mandatory evacuations launched. There is flooding of the New York subways, store shelves all over the East Coast. Our own Dan Badandi went and shot video. We're going to be showing a little bit later, or just rolling over me while I talk here, of the store shelves pretty much bare when you talk about Providence, Rhode Island, where he is based right now. He's normally here as one of our reporters. He'd gone on a week-long vacation to visit family, and he's up there reporting. He may be popping in a little bit later in the broadcast as well. And again, if you're a radio listener that just tuned in, you're like, we're going to be showing video over us while we're talking here of Dan there driving around New Haven and then also going back to Rhode Island and driving around Providence, Rhode Island there. We are also streaming video at prisonplanet.tv and InfoWarsNews.com. What I want to do here ahead of our guests joining us, Dr. Nick Begich and Bob Fletcher, both icons when it comes to really being among the first to scientifically begin to document that there is massive weather modification going on across the board, not just here, but worldwide. When Begich would talk about this 20 years ago, people looked at him like he was a space alien. And, of course, his father was a famous congressman in Alaska. His brother's a U.S. senator currently. Just an amazing researcher, probably the biggest brain out there with documents and facts and patents and the numbers and all the proof and everything that there is a giant global manipulation going on with electromagnetic ground-based systems, air-based magnetic systems, air-based aerosol chemical systems, aluminum dioxide, barium salts, and other things. He's going to be joining us because weather modification is a real thing. Our government admits they do it. $5 billion a year program that finally got declassified earlier this year, but the details are still classified. They just admit, yeah, we spend $5 billion in one program manipulating the atmosphere, and we're not going to tell you what we're doing. Well, we know what you're doing. We reverse engineered it. And it is diabolical. It is not to help people. It is to consolidate control. The bankers have always wanted to get rid of U.S. farmers and small dairies and ranches and things, and they're doing it with all this freak weather. Just like State Department Memorandum 200 says they'll use war, famine, you name it, to deindustrialize third world countries that try to industrialize and to shut down food production and kill people. And that was declassified in 1991. Look it up. Written by Henry Kissinger. So Dr. Nick Begich is joining us, and then Bob Fletcher, always amazing, to give us his take on all of this today. But what I want to do right now is go through some of the headlines and then go to your calls. For people on the East Coast, Dan Badandi's driven around some of the other areas of New England, high winds, some rain, but it hasn't really, it's gone mainly into Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and it hasn't really turned fully into New England yet. So it's not that bad yet there, and thank God. But again, we're going to be later going over some of that video here for people that are watching at prisonplanet.tv. Just without audio, we'll just roll some of it as he drove around the empty gas stations and, again, went into the grocery stores and the food, water, and things, and toilet paper and things were bare. I mean, why do people run out and get things last minute. You see, some of the basic stuff is there, but the food, the toilet paper, that's all empty. Why wouldn't people have basic necessities already stocked? I mean, I've got a basement full of paper towels and medical supplies and toilet paper and ammunition and storable foods and camping supplies. Not because I live in fear. I try to live empowered. Continuing here, top East Coast refiner restarting after Hurricane Sandy. So refineries are already restarting in some areas. That's good. Here is an article out of USA Today. Sandy unlikely to postpone election. Well, let's hope that's the case. At least 80 flooded houses destroyed in New York City fire. Wall Street Journal. Hurricane Sandy, losses worse than Irene. Disaster forecast Reuters. Hurricane Sandy, hundreds evacuated from New York City hospital. Fox News. Hurricane Sandy floods New York City. Photos show devastation. New York Times, Northeast suffers huge damage in storm's path. Millions without power. Continuing, this is out of Christian Science Monitor. Hurricane Sandy, predecessor, the great hurricane of 1938. What can we learn from it? And they say, well, fire is the big danger and some other issues. The world is watching. Global concern over Hurricane Sandy. At least 18 dead, millions without power in Sandy's aftermath. So the latest number is 18 dead now, 17 just 20 minutes ago. And obviously they find a lot more dead after. That's the really sad thing here is they found 18 already, folks. It's probably 50 right now. I mean, we've had floods in South Texas that killed 35 people in one night in one county. So this is probably going to be pretty bad loss of life-wise, but nothing compared to the daily death tolls on the highways. I mean, this world's a dangerous place, but got to pray for everybody there on the East Coast. Going through some more of these headlines here. Curfew enacted in East Haven, and that's out of Connecticut. So that's in East New Haven. Sandpiper Restaurant on Cozy Beach Avenue in East Haven is closed, but shows a sense of humor as Hurricane Sandy moves north. Go away, Sandy, and we'll feed you a lobster roll is the sign there on the facility. Again, Manhattan subway closed. Cars are floating down the street. Washington Blog has a report on that. First, an electricity blackout, and now cell phone coverage is down as users in Manhattan battle signal failures. And there are some reports I have here of increased robberies and things in New York, people using the darkness, but no widespread looting. There have been a few arrests in New York and other areas for looting and things, but there's always some crime going on in any major city. But I just want to point out that if you try to loot in places like Texas when hurricanes hit, you get killed. In fact, there's always a lot of people that do get shot trying to loot. And it's normally places like Chicago and New York where the criminal governments have disarmed the law-abiding citizens that you have the highest crime rates. And it's time to free Chicago. It's time to free New York, great American cities, iconic cities, from the globalist grip of the crime bosses that want their quarry, their victims disarmed. Thousands of people in Manhattan woke to find they had no cell phone coverage this morning after Superstorm Sandy battered the city's phone mast. Cell phone users in large swaths of lower Manhattan suffered signal failures after 24 hours of devastating weather. For many, it means they are virtually cut off and have no way of contacting friends or family or calling for help if there is future emergencies or further emergencies. Here's another one. Superstorm Sandy leaves millions without power, again, across tri-state area. New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and other states, more than just 3 states there, that it's really hitting hard. Con Edison, LIP, A, PSEG, JCP, and L, 4.5 million customers have lost power in just one area. Another 670,000, Con Edison reporting that, 200,000 in another area. So there's just too many reports to even be able to follow it all. At least 80 flooded houses destroyed. Again, I mentioned that. It's one of the biggest things in New York by fire. 2 New Jersey towns overrun by water from creek drains. Also, a possible levee break in New Jersey floods 3 towns. That's Reuters. The towns of, I hope I pronounced this right, Moonachie, Little Ferry, and Karlsstalt were underwater after swollen Hackensack River broke its banks, flooding 2,000 residents in the county alone. A big storm requires big government, a disgusting article out of the New York Times about how only big government can save us. That's why we need a big fat FEMA to run everything. I got to come suck all our resources out and then come and boss everybody around, cut down the police communications because the police wouldn't follow their orders to stand down completely in New Orleans, and to block the police and others from other counties from coming in and helping, and fire departments from Texas and other areas, Louisiana, Mississippi, from coming into New Orleans, and all the other sabotage FEMA did, and not giving people aid for 6 days, then going to the high and dry areas and taking the guns, and then making people sit in the Superdome while they got raped under orders. The police and military sat out there on giant pallets of food and water on record. No one was allowed to walk out themselves on the high and dry highways to high and dry areas. You would be shot if you tried that. Just a pure exercise of raw evil. That's what happened. Most Americans have never heard of the National Response Coordination Center, but they're lucky it exists on days of lethal winds and flood tides. The center is the war room of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, where officials, not servants, gather to decide where rescuers should go. Yeah, where everybody should stand down. Bunch of tyrants. Disgusting. Water, fire, destruction, New York City after the superstorm. Nuclear Regulation Commission declares alert at Oyster Creek nuclear plant. We're going to cover that when we get back and go to your calls.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Again, just finishing up with this. Nuclear Regulatory Commission declares alert at Oyster Creek nuclear plant. And the report goes on to say the Oyster Creek plant in New Jersey is the most likely to be affected by the hurricane. That's what the George Washington blog spot that we posted at Infowars.com did report yesterday. And indeed, that is now being affected. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission is conducting and continuing to monitor the impacts for Hurricane Sandy on nuclear power plants in the northeastern United States, including an alert declared at the Oyster Creek nuclear power plant in New Jersey. The plant currently is a regularly scheduled outage, declared the alert at approximately 8:45 p.m. EDT due to water exceeding certain high water level criteria in the plant's water intake structure. An alert is the second lowest of 4 NRC action levels. The alert was preceded by an unusual event declared at approximately 7 p.m. EDT when the water level first reached a minimum high water level criteria. Water level is rising in the intake structure due to a combination of rising tide and direction and storm surge. It is anticipated water levels will begin to be abate within the next several hours. And then AP goes on to report the plant's owner, Exelon Corporation, said power was also disrupted in the station's switchyard, but backup diesel generators, as Washington Blogspot predicted they would do yesterday, were providing stable power with more than 2 weeks of fuel on hand. The NRC spokesman said if the floodwaters continue to rise, it could affect the reactor's service water pumps, which are used for shutdown cooling and to cool the spent fuel pond. Let me stop right there. Here's the issue. I think nuclear power overall would be good if you had moral companies and corporations and state governments that would hold them accountable. Should be the state government doing that. But you can look up the numbers. It's even mainstream news. It's 92% of reactors of the 416 or whatever it is worldwide that are big power reactors. There's hundreds of other research reactors, and we're not counting hundreds of nuclear power submarines on both sides of the Atlantic. But the point is that there are 400 and some change reactors, and most of them are over 30 years old. I think the average age is, 32 years? Some are 39 years, and they're not meant to go more than 25 years. Radiation rots things, and these things are falling apart. And they illegally, but they don't get in trouble, just store the reactor waste, even on top of the new reactors or the new rods. And they put them in spent fuel ponds. You know, if water ever gets out of those catch on fire and then start blowing up, start melting down. You've seen Fukushima, you've seen Chernobyl, you've seen just 3 Mile Island. And there are events now routinely bigger than 3 Mile Island, and it's not even in the news. Down in Southern California, they've had, just the last year, reactors have had alarms because radiation's released. And they announced, you know, we're not going to scare the public. The Federal Department of Energy and others, they're going to just say that we don't have to have the alarms go off anymore. Oh, that's a good idea. And when radiation blows in from Fukushima, and when the tuna, I mean, they knew 3 months in that tuna had already gotten across the Pacific very quickly and were contaminated with high levels of radiation. And it just came out this year, almost a year later, that, oh, yeah, the feds tested it and knew it was radioactive, but they decided to not scare people. They let people eat the tuna. The seals are dying, their hair's falling out, all over the West Coast. And what did the EPA do? They just raised the level of what they said was safe isotopes, in some cases 1,000%. Didn't mean that radiation was 1,000% up. It's just they said, you know what, we're just going to say it's safe now. We're going to say DU safe for the troops. So that's the problem with nuclear power. If society collapses and people walk away from reactors, in 2 weeks they blow up.
While we fight to retain our liberty, while we fight to expose globalism, we have to realize we're talking about a very powerful combination of power.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones. We have loaded phone lines here, but as soon as you hear a caller hang up, that is your cue to be able to call in. But again, if you're not on the East Coast, please give folks a chance on the East Coast to call in. I mean, it really is a frightening prospect that there are hundreds of reactors in this country, 400 plus worldwide, and if humans walked away, in 2 weeks on average, they would start melting down. In 2 weeks, if diesel fuel isn't delivered to the Oyster Creek facility, which is a big nuclear plant on the coast of New Jersey, it would go into meltdown. Now, obviously, they're going to get them diesel fuel. It's not an issue at this time. But every time we hear about 90+% of plants leaking, I mean, now I see it in Nebraska or Canada or England or France, that radiation levels, just earlier this year, went up all over Europe. I mean, dangerous radiation. And it was going, yeah, no one knows where it's coming from, but the maps show it looks like from France. And then later it came out, yeah, the plant kind of was about to melt down, so they off-gassed a bunch of radiation. Oh, sorry. Not a big deal. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, people would freak out over any type of radiation release, and rightly they should have. They had what out in Southern California, famous plant. Just type in California nuclear plant meltdown. And it wasn't declassified until the 90s. How do you classify that that was a salt reactor? How do you classify that it absolutely melted down? I mean, just type in California nuclear plant that melted down, kept secret, and you'll get, I forget even the name and the details. But you guys put that in California nuclear meltdown and it'll pop up. It's like NBC News, ABC News from like 3 years ago. But the point is that you can look this up. It's not even an issue now when they off-gas or leak stuff. And it's just like, this goes to the core of the New World Order mindset, that previous to 1990, they would not let U.S. troops use DU because you breathe that stuff and it's deadly poison, not to mention radioactive. And they don't have the TSA wearing radiation badges. There it is, California's historical nuclear meltdown. Japan's nuclear crisis has planted indelible memories worldwide and reveals doubts about the health and safety of nuclear power. It may unsettle many to discover that California, too, experienced a partial nuclear meltdown. The accident, which occurred in '59, is claimed to have been released more radiation than 3 Mile Island. Yeah, no kidding. The severity of health impacts on the incident of site workers and those surrounding the community is still being debated today. And that's a site. Click on that. I think that link goes to NBC where it says nuclear power crisis. Yeah, right there. And it, that's a report on it. No, that's a report on Japan. Go back. I want to find out the exact name of that. The point is, you can go look it up. All right, I'm ranting. I said I'd go to your calls. Coming up in the next segment, and we'll continue with calls throughout the broadcast with our guest, we have a piece that we shot last week that John Bound directed and put together. Did a great job. There's 2 pieces, actually. We're going to air one today, one tomorrow. And that the rest of the crew did a great job on. Great camera work by the whole crew. David Knight and everybody, to see the whole crew working together is so exciting. And, yeah, it's zombies, folks. And it's pointing out that the public is becoming zombie-like in their brainwaves and becoming zombie-like in their mindset. And so we're going to air that little short piece, part 1, coming up in the next segment. So if you're not a PrisonPlanet.tv viewer, you might want to go over to PrisonPlanet.tv so you can see it premiere. But never fear the radio audience. Later today, we will post it up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com for everybody. In fact, we'll do that like an hour after we first premiere it here for people watching at PrisonPlanet.tv. Again, my issue is we don't know when plants have problems now, because universities will go, hey, we're getting, 67 times or 125 times. I mean, you can see these reports. But it's not even like it's news. It's like saying some guy dropped his shoe in the road and nobody cares. Or, hey, they got a sale on ground chuck at Winn-Dixie. I mean, it's just a minor. They report it like it's nothing. Decades later, Simi Valley nuclear meltdown still impacts lives. Yeah, that's where it happened in '59. And, I mean, look at the plant. I mean, it blew up. It melted down. I mean, even the media whitewashes the fact that that it was a near complete meltdown, and they kept it secret until a few years ago. That's what makes me mad, is that I grew up believing commies didn't want us to have nuclear power, and nuclear power is a great thing. And let me tell you, it isn't a great thing. And now they're launching all these spacecraft with it on top of rockets up into the atmosphere. Think if one of those things blows up. If it falls into orbit and heats up and we get a nice little radiation burst. Well, they don't care, because now they just say, hey, you can have 25 times cesium-9 or whatever it is. You can have 200 times this. You can have 1,000 times that. I mean, they had dozens of isotopes they listed. Well, this can be 1,000 times higher than what we said before. I mean, do you government bureaucrats really think you're going to get out of what you're doing to us, you lunatics? Or you these nuclear power company owners and these crazy shareholders? crazy shareholders of private nuclear plants that want to be able to sell their DU. And you know, the military already bought 50 years of it and had so much of it stockpiled, they didn't know what to do with it. They said, well, let's just start using it. And the scientists on record all went, in the military brass went, you can't use that. It's deadly poisonous. All our studies show it gives the rats cancer and deformities and gives them lung cancer. You can't use it. It ignites in the barrel, whether it's from an Abrams Sabo or whether it's fired from a 50 cal Barrett system. And they don't care. They just have this. It's psycho, ladies and gentlemen. I got to say this. Last night, I was sitting there reading books to my children, and I looked into my 4-year-old daughter's eyes, and she was so innocent and so good that it hurts so bad to know that she's going to grow up in this corrupt, degenerating world. And it's so painful. It is so painful to know how important a trust this radio show is and how imperfect and out of control I am, and the fact that I am not living up to 1/10 of my potential, but I'm trying. It is just the absolute total drive in my spirit to want to serve and protect the innocent and to want to be wholesome and good, and then to have to look into my wicked heart, which compared to most people, if you looked at my heart, you think that guy's a saint. Well, no, I know how wicked I am, just that I know evil itself. People hear me sometimes get dark and they go, man, he sounds like a really crazy psychopath. Well, yes, I can stare into evil. And let me tell you, I don't like what I see. But you know what? It's there. The difference is I know the good from the bad. I cannot imagine people that want to hurt innocent children. But they see the innocence and want to destroy it and feed on it. And I'm just telling you, folks, I've seen the enemy. I know the enemy. They are pathetic and weak. And I am sick of strong people standing down and letting evil control this planet. I am tired of it. I am sick of it. I would rather God destroy this planet and everybody on it than let these innocent children be slowly tortured and killed by the globalist. And again, I want the planet to not be destroyed, and I want, you know, the future to go forward, and I would, you know, never commit suicide. That's not my point. I'm saying all over the world, the globalists are setting up a planetary dictatorship so they can hurt innocent people. So they can hurt the infirm, so they can hurt women and children, so they can hurt the innocents. This whole thing wants to hurt innocence because real evil hates innocence. Innocence, beauty, goodness, purity. It's so good. It's so good. And we, those of us that are strong, have got to literally throw ourselves against the enemy. And I know you're good. I know you have power out there. And I want to see you turn it loose on these people. I want to crush them. Not because I have some hateful rage. I want to remove the attacking jackals that are ripping our little ones to pieces and hurting our species and killing our women. It makes me angry when I hear about women that have cancer when they're young, especially, and to know it's engineered. It makes me angry to see children with cancer. All right, I said I'd go to your calls on the East Coast. I apologize. I appreciate you calling in. Chase in New York, you're on the air. Go ahead. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for calling.
So my biggest grudge was that I've been preparing, you know, for all kinds of disasters and including global financial collapse for the last, 2 years. Some of my friends and family, you know, who have woken up and are aware and see what's going on, you know, it started out just, hey, just prepare for a winter storm. Or, you know, we even had the hurricane last year and nobody cared. Like, nobody's done anything since then, and it really upset me. It really bothered me, you know, that I called and checked on everybody this morning down to Long Island, and my mom, who's 15 miles away from Indian Point, and I says, you know, how come you don't have 100 gallons of water stored already? Like, how come you didn't get out of there?
Bears, foxes, wolves, lions, tigers, they all eat their fill and then bury the carcass to come back and eat it later. Ants store food. Most insects store food. All humans have always stored food and water as backups. And the government, until recently when they were shamed into it, said people that are prepping are bad. Now they say, yeah, have a week of food and water. Again, they do not want us self-sufficient. it's not that we're in fear that we're prepared. It's not for fear that I've got a gun under my desk. It's that I'm living empowered. And exactly what you're saying. I've seen news reports of the store shelves cleaned, and I know New York City's flooding. What reports can you give us on that front?
Part of it was just laziness. That almost, I think they just opened up a couple bridges. They're talking about, oh, Indian power plant's fine. You know, there's no problem there. We've got everything under control, and we're not worried about it at all. That the cops are out in full force, stay off the streets, stay where you are. But at the same time, they want you to report to these, you know, refugee, Red Cross, FEMA camp centers. So, you know, it's conflicting the whole time. Yeah, it's just totally backwards.
Anything else you'd like to add, sir?
You know, I just wish that people would pay attention. You know, like, take it seriously. Don't take it for granted. Don't be lazy. Get out there and, you know, even if you're just saving your 2-liter bottles and fill them up with water so you can flush your toilet, you know, do something. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. Let's go to Bill in Pennsylvania, hard hit by the storm. Bill, is this all hype or a little bit of hype, or how bad is it?
Alex, let me start real quick. I know you don't like pats on the back, but I found you by accident 4 years ago, and you and your show has changed the life of me and my family, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. I'll tell you what, you could kind of see it coming yesterday. We had a lot of wind here. I'm 3 miles north of Philadelphia, and it started yesterday afternoon. They shut the bridges down from Pennsylvania to New Jersey for commercial vehicles. And then at 7 o'clock last night, Governor Corbett, he closed every route into Philadelphia, which is like every highway that gets into Philadelphia, you couldn't get in and you couldn't get out. So,
and that's what the military's been training for forever. You know, I heard Dan Badandi during the money bomb that he broadcasted for 7 hours of it, our reporter who's back visiting family. I heard him in the halls on air here tell the story of being in an airport and talking to a listener who was a FEMA pretty, you know, mid-level, who showed him maps and how there'd be a natural disaster during the election and how it would be used and how he had to mobilize thousands of buses and all this. And then we don't have the crew, so we've been scrambling all morning, you know, just trying to even find that in the 7 hours of the money bomb versus his blog talk show he had before. And then Dan is there with his 1-year-old son and his wife, so he only you know, is scrambling around trying to find it. But, I mean, I heard him tell that story. I heard him say that FEMA said, we don't know what it is, but something during the election. We've heard all the cops call in and say that, too. And I don't know if this is it. It's just very strange that that's on record. Our listeners could go through all the money bomb video, 48-hour broadcast that we did with Dan Badandi. Did 7 hours of it, or like 6.5 hours total. That's all at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. We don't have the crew to find it. So I just said, well, we can't have Dan on to play that and then have him talk about it because, you know, if you don't have the proof, you can't show it. Doesn't matter. We all, you know, he talked about it on YouTube, his videos, but doesn't exist. But the point is that they're certainly using this as a power grab in areas where it's not even a problem. I see areas where it's barely raining, and they're using it to have troops on the street. But then you can argue, well, what if they didn't? People are saying they were going to loot. What do you think of the people threatening to loot during this?
Well, exactly. I think a lot of it, like just like with Romney, they're not going to do anything. They're kind of hoping for it. The township that I'm in, there's 100,000 people. We have way too many police force. They're 100% militarized. We have an armored personnel troop carrier. We have gigantic mobile homes that are converted into stationary bases. These guys were running around this town yesterday. They were licking their chops, Alex. They were licking their chops. They couldn't wait to kick people out of their houses. We had some evacuations in some parts of the town, but they were running around like animals yesterday. Like they couldn't wait to use the toys that they had. They just had to sell a boat that they bought because they could only use it on a small portion of the Delaware River, and they had to sell it. So now it's like they're trying to make a case for using the rest of their toys. All
over the country, Homeland Security with our money is buying speedboats with heavy machine guns mounted for millions of dollars. They're like $700,000 a piece, the ones the Texas Department of Public Safety got. And now they're throwing them on Maine lakes. So gunboats come up to you because these guys all want to be soldiers. And, of course, now they're telling them Al-Qaeda's not the enemy, it's us, the American people. So you've seen Homeland Security TV ads and print ads likening the American people to zombies during disasters that have to be mowed down. The zombie archetype is being used to make us think of our fellow humans as already dead, living dead biological androids, self-propelled mindless drones. So they're teaching us a self-loathing. We are taking the zombie meme away and really showing people that they want us to be these biological androids and are using this archetype to sell this idea. The new InfoWars magazine is 60 pages long, glossy, and the last two were excellent. This one blows them away. Again, I want to salute the crew. 4 articles, but it's got a bunch of other news in it on the economy, Second Amendment. There's 4 big articles with mainline scientific reports about the brainwaves being lowered, the public being in a trance state like the Matrix, cartoons programming the kids with flashing lights, mainstream government documents. It's super power-packed to give zombies in your family. You can give 12 issues for one price, shipping included at InfoWarsStore.com. And it'll deliver 12 magazines to their door. They will wake up with that, or they'll never wake up. InfoWarsStore.com. But here's a little promo we did dealing with zombies that John Bound and crew put together, and we'll air part 2 tomorrow. But here it is, Alex Jones attacked by zombies. Special report from Austin, Texas, the home of Zombieland. Alex Jones here reporting on a virtual army of out-of-control zombified yuppie sheeple marching around everywhere chanting mainstream media slogans. We're here reporting on this epidemic that is spreading and the mass murder of psyche and critical thinking. Help us! A worldwide phenomenon of trendies becoming more and more mindless and being in zombie-like trance states, worshiping mainstream media, American Idol, and Justin Bieber. Is there any way to awaken them? Is there any cure to this virtual madness, the mass murder of the mind and critical thinking?
Second Amendment bad.
You poor zombie. Here, you need this.
Is there any hope? Tune in next time. Can we cure the zombies? The presentation you have just witnessed is a test. Are you conscious? Are you aware that you are being manipulated? Or have you descended into a dreamlike zombie state that much of the public is suffering from? In the power-packed November issue of InfoWars magazine, we detail with the scientific facts in 4 separate articles the proof that the public is being brainwashed. Our brainwaves are lowering, our IQs are dropping, and we are being turned into nothing more than biological androids. You can buy copies of InfoWars magazine at cost in bundles of 10 up to 100 and give them to your friends and family. It's time to shake humanity out of the trance that they're in. And the November issue of InfoWars magazine is designed to do just that. Sign up for a subscription or secure copies at cost in bulk today at InfoWarsStore.com. Right now, let's go to Derek, Alicia, Lisa, Otter, and others. Derek in Pennsylvania. How bad is the storm, sir? They say you're right in the middle of it.
Oh, out where I'm at, it's actually not too bad. I'm in Schuylkill County, and just a few down trees, a few down lines, but nothing really out of the normal. I personally think most of the storm was hyped up, but perhaps for my area, I'm not too sure about the East Coast.
Well, good. What's your overall take on the situation?
Well, I found the situation opportunity to test to see how well my own preparedness would be for such an emergency. So I treated it as if it was a full emergency, even though I knew it wasn't, to see what type of supplies I actually might be deficient in. And I have it pretty well, as in terms of survival gear.
I just can't believe what the earlier caller talked about, that people tried to go to the store and within hours the toilet paper and water was gone. I mean, people had like a week with the storm coming to already go out and get that. I mean, what are people thinking? It's scary to think how dependent people are. Good to hear you're doing okay there in Pennsylvania. Lisa in Mass, thanks for holding. You're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Alex. How are you today?
I'm good. It's good hearing your voice.
If somebody asked me about my own experience for this hurricane, I would have to say that it was really a nothing storm.
Well, I mean, I was looking at the last few, they call them super horrible and stuff, and it does look like hype unless you're in lower Manhattan. It's all flooded, so.
But they showed on the news the town of Scituate, which was flooding. It's a coastal town. And the police went door to door offering to take people out of their homes, and everybody refused.
Well, that is always heartening that most people may be dumbed down, but they know to not listen to the government. I'm sorry.
I'm proud of the town of Scituate for refusing. But, yeah, we got barely any wind. We'd get a little rain, and then it would be quiet for hours, and then it would rain a little again. So,
I mean, Dan Badandi is in Rhode Island, and I saw articles saying Rhode Island hard hit, and he goes, man, it's barely blowing. In fact, he did a video yesterday. He was shooting video out the window of his house. It was hardly even raining. But the store shelves were empty of key items, but overall. But, hey, tell that to the 19 dead people they found. I mean, obviously it is an issue, and we should pray for everybody. And kind of like Katrina, the first day, people didn't think anything was happening until later. It could keep raining. I mean, if it keeps raining and raining. In fact, we should be showing some of the Doppler radar and stuff. Drudge.com, drudgereport.com. It's got a lot of the best links to all the different radar and satellite and the rest of it. Anything else, ma'am?
We've had the sun out here this morning. The skies are trying to clear, and the sun's been out a few times.
Did you see the New York Times headline? Well, big storms need big government.
Please, the last thing we need is big government. I can take care of myself and my neighbors better than the government can. I'm like you. I'm totally ready. I have supplies of food and toilet paper and all that good stuff. And
well, you might be a terrorist then. I mean, good luck to the criminals that have hijacked the government to try to teach the police and military that it's bad to prep and that you're a terrorist if you do. And let's put preppers on no-fly list when they're defense contractors with no criminal record because you prep on your Facebook. And people are supposed to get intimidated by that and go, oh, well, I won't prep then because you say I shouldn't. I mean, what? Because the government's scary? We should be scared that the government's trying to scare us into not being prepared. We should be getting prepared because they don't want us to get prepared. But let's talk, before we go to Dr. Nick Begich, to Dave in New York, who says he's a first responder, EMT, emergency medical technician, to give us his take. In New York City, state, or the city or the state, New York, because if you're in New York, that's the one spot you could say is the worst off from what I've seen in the news. Dave, where are you located in New York?
Yeah, I was located in Coney Island, Brooklyn, Alex. It's like where basically like the heart of the storm hit. It was bad. The water basically got up to our waist. We were trying to go around trying to save people. They had like the Zone A part of Brooklyn, Coney Island, where people were told to evacuate. Obviously, people didn't listen and didn't think that the flood was bad, Alex. We were like maybe 2 miles away from the ocean. I mean, like the water was deep around our waist. I mean, we're watching tidal waves in the streets. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I've been in combat in Afghanistan, in the Marines, and I was shocked to what I've seen. And people, the public, brain dead, running to try to move their cars. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Well, let me stop you and just make the point. I made the point that if you're, 100 miles inshore and you're not low sea level, you don't need to evacuate. And I was telling the lady, that makes no sense. But, yeah, I mean, if you're right on the coast and a hurricane's coming in, unless you live in an armored fortress 50 feet off the ground, it's smart to get out of there. And I've been at the coast when there's a hurricane before. I was stupid enough in college to go down there, and it was a small hurricane, I think only about 80, 90-mile-an-hour winds, and it was scary to see those waves coming in and starting to come over, the pool and the hotel. But you're saying you've been in combat. And are you saying this was scarier?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm watching tidal waves in the streets of New York, and the sewers popping open, water flying everywhere. And like I said, I've never seen, this was like basically our Hurricane Katrina. Obviously, the callers who are calling you, they didn't experience what we experienced. Because like I said, anybody who was in the New York City area, near the Rockaways of Queens or like Lower Manhattan and like Brooklyn basically got flooded out. I mean, there were cars in the streets floating around. And
well, no, that's confirmed. Well, then let me ask you this question. I just started the hour saying mainly media hype. Would you say I'm wrong? I mean, they're calling this the worst storm ever. Is this the worst thing you've ever seen in New York?
Yes, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, I had like a guy who's been working with me. He's been, he's a little bit older than me, and he used to live around here. And he told me he'd seen many hurricanes, and he never seen anything like that. I mean, and like I said, the water was just rising so quickly. Like I said, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And one thing, like I said, Alex, about the brain-dead zombies, you had people leaving their houses trying to go move their cars, trying to save their cars. We're telling them to go back to your house. Your life is more important than your car. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, you couldn't believe how many people were trying to move their cars, like going in, like, water up to their waist, Alex. Crazy.
Wow. Yeah, no, I saw it on the news and have seen the photos. We've got it up at Infowars.com. DrudgeReport.com has it as well. And so, again, other than New York, though, and some coastal areas of New Jersey, from what I've seen, it is not the mega disaster they said. But it's kind of like people argue, is it a depression or a recession? Well, if you've got a job, it's a recession. If you've been out of work for 6 months, it's a depression. So for you living there in New York, this is a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you see like cars, totaled cars left and right because, when salt water gets in the, in the engines, it's totaled right then and there. I mean,
what about the zombie point? Because I saw that in the news too. You're saying you witnessed people trying to go in and move their cars in 3 feet of water.
Yes, I witnessed that. Like trying to move it to high ground, basically. I mean, I'm telling people not to go whatever in the direction the water is coming up higher, and they're not listening. And
yeah, you can get a new car. You can't get a new body.
Exactly. And then even today, the aftermath in the morning, you're seeing people just walking around, just lollygagging. You know what I'm saying, like with a zombie look in their eye. I mean, and they're like, oh, we need help. What we gonna do? This or whatever. And there's only so much you could do. And like all morning long, we've just been rescuing people that stayed in their houses, basically. That didn't listen.
Well, I mean, the issue is if you've got a big, serious stone house that's withstood stuff before, and you got 3 stories, I mean, you might be safe if the roof doesn't blow off. But yeah, the issue is that you take things like Katrina, where people were high and dry, and they got, taken away by the military. And again, that's the problem with the government response. Even if the government means well, there's no way to implement it properly because no one has the HUMET or the human intelligence everywhere, no matter what computers they've got. There's no telling what exactly is going to happen until the hammer gets dropped. What about looting? I've seen a few arrests with stuff in New York and other areas, or are the thieves not taking advantage of it because it's so dangerous to go out in the streets that are literally like rivers?
As far as what I see, everything is orderly. Nobody's been, looting anything like that. Right now, this is day one, obviously, so we have to wait, because they say power is going to be out at least maybe 2 weeks here. This is what they're saying.
Okay, New York City, how many are in New York City in all the boroughs? 8 million, 9 million?
Yeah, about 8. I'd say about 8 to 10 million people, actually.
Okay. Let's just say 9 million people roughly there. Where's the election? 9 million people aren't going to vote now?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know what? New York State is Democratic anyway, so it's for Obama, so it really doesn't make a difference,
Sure, but U.S. News and World Report said that it would help Romney, but more and more, if New York and New Jersey can't vote, and they're historically mainly Democrat. I know they've got a Republican governor there in New Jersey who canceled Halloween so you can have all the candy bars, the joke is. Well, listen, sir, thank you so much for your update. Would you like to give your cell phone number to John Harmon up there at Genesis so that we can call you for updates in the next few days?
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and God bless, and be safe there, Dave. So pray for everybody. Like I said, New York and New Jersey and other areas, there's 20 people dead now. So, yeah, the media's overhyped it, but mainly because there was the potential this thing could have done this ever. And it may keep raining and may do this all over the place. I mean, you know, we don't know yet. I am just not going to jump the gun and say it's the biggest disaster ever until we're totally sure. But let me tell you, a lot can happen in the next 6-7 days before the election. We're now 6.5 days out from this. Alicia in New York, site of some of the worst flooding and disaster and deaths. Alicia, thank you for holding. Good to have you here with us. Give us your take on the storm.
Hi, Alex. I think it depends on where you are. Definitely, like where the other caller was from in the Rockaways and Coney Islands, there definitely was a lot of damage and flooding. I know Lower Manhattan definitely flooded when the water receded, but the stock exchange is closed the past 2 days. World Financial Center is closed. The World Trade Center construction site was flooded a bit. So it's, where I personally live, there was no power outage, but I've been in contact with people out in New Jersey and other parts of Queens where there were like transformers exploding and fires and power outages. So it definitely depends on where you are.
So do you think the media has overhyped it, or do you think underhyped it? What's your take?
I think a little bit of overhype, and I think that has a bad effect because then New Yorkers tend to always want to just sort of like brush things off their shoulders and say, oh, this was fine, it wasn't so bad. And I think after Irene, people still didn't prepare much, so there was a lot of scrambling this time around. And I think for those, probably the majority of people were okay, and they're still probably not going to prepare. And then, there'll be another event, and people will be scrambling again. So I think overall it probably was a bit of hype, and a lot of people will look at it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the problem with the continued hyping of disasters. Then when it really happens, people aren't ready because the system's been crying wolf. I mean, I've been like saying, oh, this is nothing, and then it is kind of bad. Well, pretty bad, not as bad as they said it'd be. I mean, it's just hard to gauge all this stuff, and instead we're being killed by the incremental loss of liberty and freedom and everything. Thank you so much, Alicia, and stay in contact with us. Otter in Massachusetts. Otter, thanks for holding. What's on your mind about the storm?
How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Good to hear from you.
All right, and you. Thank you. That's as far as the storm goes. First, very incredible. I'm hoping you'll bring back Dr. Nick again soon. Very great
amazing
points there. So I think one of the things people are missing on the storm is that we've got this combination of full moon and high tides, which the tidal surge is then brought on shore, and that's what the flooding's coming from. A lot of people that aren't getting the news out there, and people like myself out here, Cape Cod and the islands, we didn't get a ton of rain. Registered 50 to 65 mile-an-hour winds today. They're saying they did hit 95. There were some trees down, but it was nothing like the instances of Bob or the perfect storm. And,
sure, so the good news is it's gotten on shore, flooding's still a problem, the winds are slowing down, it's losing power. Hopefully this thing will peter out.
Right, losing power, that's one of the key elements. And that brings us around to two things that I'd love to hit on. I don't know if I can get to both today.
Go ahead.
But transhumanism is one of them. The real thing is the continuation of the storm thought, and that is that the electric issues are still cycling. We just got internet back at this house, my host's house here. It had gone out. I got one post into Planet InfoWars last night before everything went down. The power's been the same way, coming, going. But that's from trees going down, and it's also from the types of feeds that we get, especially out here on this island 7 miles out in the Atlantic.
Let's go to Kenny in Maryland. There in the storm's path. Thank you for joining us while you're under attack by Sandy, sir. Thank you for your stalwart, stoic waiting on hold. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. Question for Bob Fletcher on HAARP.
Unfortunately, he's gone now, but go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. No problem. Just last week, the Monday, I was seeing a lot of chemtrails around. And just Saturday morning, it was quite clear. By 12, the chemtrails, I guess, had formed and made that gray cloud that spoke of. And there was actually a ring around the sun as well.
Yeah, but that BBC admits that's when they're doing weather modification. I mean, they've got articles about it and just show it. I mean, the point is they're just doing it. They admit they're doing it, but say, we're doing something, suckers, but we're not going to tell you, so roll over and die. I mean, it's just amazing.
She said it looked like a force field. It definitely did that. And the storm, prayers goes out to all the families lost. It didn't really hit hard here in Maryland. It didn't really touch home. I mean, it was just a strong storm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really bad in areas that are low, like New York, Manhattan, things like that. Well, God bless you, sir. Good to hear from you. Sorry you couldn't talk to Bob, but we just did this segment to take your calls. Chris in New York, hardest hit from what I've seen. What's your take on this, Chris?
How you doing there, Alex?
Good, sir.
All right. Well, I'm here in upstate New York, about 30 miles from New York City. New Jersey got it really bad. A lot of devastation over there. And the bad thing, though, is that a lot of the trains have been canceled and shut down. So the transportation system is not really good. So this was a really devastating storm. And there were about 30 people who died. So I think that this is, whoever caused it, I really can't say, but it really is devastating.
Devastating there in New York. We've seen the images, no doubt. How are you faring?
I'm okay because our electricity was flickering on and off. But overall, our area wasn't that bad, although there were some trees down on the street. Some paths were blocked.
Well, sir, we will continue to track it all. Thank you for that update in New York, Chris. Let's talk to Talon in Oregon. Well, no, we need to, I promised, maybe it wasn't clear. We're taking calls from the storm. So let's go to Chris first in Mass. Chris, real quick in Mass. Go ahead. Or I guess it is Talon. Go ahead, Talon in Oregon. Go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can. You bet.
Awesome. It's been a while. I've been trying. Okay, so I actually have an opinion on the storm. I think that possibly they could, it could just come off as a fluke and they were overhyping it. Well, I don't know how long the storm's going to last, but, that could be part of their, I guess, plan, if you will.
Or they may not be in complete control of the weather with the sun and moon and the gravity being more powerful than what they've done. It's certainly 1,000-mile wide monster Mac rain-wise. Like you said, the death toll's 25. That guy was saying 30. But, I mean, it's certainly a serious issue if you're under it right now.
Yeah, well, my prayers go out to the people on the east.
Absolutely. My prayers go out to those being bombed by globalist drones all over the world where they say, yeah, we'll kill 20, 50, 100, 200 people who are innocent to get one bad guy. They're not humans. They're just foreigners. The globalists think the same thing of you. I appreciate your call, sir. The big news I didn't cover enough here is Jesse Ventura, the TSA episode, killed, will not air. And it's like, hey, we're starting to shut down stuff we don't like. How's that sound, you scum out there? Well, I don't think you're scum. I think you're going to stand up against them. And if you serve the system, you better decide which side you're on, because let me tell you, we're hurtling towards disaster. We're on the eve of really serious collapse if this insanity continues. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.